What's up, guys? This is Chris from DraftDashboard.com. Here are my DFS picks for NBA Sunday, April 11th. These picks apply for DraftKings and FanDuel. Before I get started, please drop a like on this video and hit that red subscribe button and hit that bell icon so you don't miss our new videos. In this video, I'm going to go over my top picks for today's NBA slate. And if you stick around to the very end of this video, we'll use the Draft Dashboard tools to make a DFS lineup using the picks we just made. Okay guys, we have an 8-game slate tonight, so let's take a look at the point guard position. I like Derrick Rose from the New York Knicks playing the Toronto Raptors, who have the 12th worst defense overall, and they give up the 10th most fantasy points to opposing point guards. Derrick Rose has averaged 24.9 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 24 minutes per game with a 27% usage rate. He scored 35 and 16 fantasy points in the last 2 games, playing 26 and 26 minutes. He's projected at 25.3 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5.4 times value. He's $4,700 FanDuel salary and $300 more on DraftKings. Now I like this pick because Derrick Rose has scored 25, 30, 29, and 26 fantasy points in his last 4 games versus the Raptors. So excellent player versus team history. So I like Derrick Rose here versus the Toronto Raptors. Okay, another point guard that I like is Malcolm Brogdon from the Indiana Pacers playing the Memphis Grizzlies, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall, and they're middle-of-the-pack defending opposing point guards. Malcolm Brogdon has averaged 37 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 35 minutes per game with a 26% usage rate. He scored 24 fantasy points in 28 minutes last game, but I expect him to get over 30 minutes here tonight, and he's projected at 33.5 fantasy points, and that's 5.1 times value. He's $6,600 FanDuel salary and the same price on DraftKings. So I like that price on both sites, and he scored 37, 37, 33, and 24 fantasy points in his last 4 games versus the Grizzlies. And Vegas thinks there's going to be 227.5 points scored in this game, so a high-scoring game. So I like Malcolm Brogdon here versus the Memphis Grizzlies. Okay, let's take a look at the shooting guard position. I like Zach LaVine from the Chicago Bulls playing the Minnesota Timberwolves, who have the absolute worst defense overall, and they give up the 4th most fantasy points. Before I continue with the picks, I'm excited today because we added a new contest for everyone watching. If you want to enter the drawing for $100 PayPal, all you need to do is like this video, hit that subscribe button, and make a quick comment below to be entered into the drawing. We'll reply to a random comment and let you know that you won, and then we'll send you $100 PayPal. So it's that easy, and we pick a new winner every Saturday and announce them in our video. So get your comment in now so I can add another entry for you. To opposing shooting guards, Zach LaVine has averaged 41.2 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 35 minutes per game with a 31% usage rate. He scored 64, 56, and 38 fantasy points in his last 3 games, playing 38, 37, and 35 minutes. He had a 44% usage rate last game, and he's projected at 41.5 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5 times value. He's $8,300 FanDuel salary and $300 more on DraftKings. He scored 33, 33, 32, and 40 fantasy points in his last 4 games versus the Timberwolves. But I like this pick because Vegas thinks there's going to be 231 points scored in this game. So it's a great matchup in a high-scoring game. So I like Zach LaVine here versus the Minnesota Timberwolves. Okay, another shooting guard that I like, I'm going to give you a value play here. I like Jeremy Lamb from the Indiana Pacers playing the Memphis Grizzlies, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall, and they give up the 8th most fantasy points to opposing shooting guards. Jeremy Lamb has averaged 20.9 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 21 minutes per game with a 19% usage rate. He scored 15, 22, and 44 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 19, 20, and 23 minutes. He's projected at 20.8 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5 times value. He's $4,200 FanDuel salary, and he's $500 less on DraftKings. So I love that DraftKings price. And I like this pick because he scored 32, 32, 32, 16, and 27 fantasy points in his last 5 games versus the Grizzlies. We know Vegas thinks there's going to be 227.5 points scored in this game. So I like Jeremy Lamb, especially on DraftKings, here versus the Memphis Grizzlies. Okay, let's take a look at the small forward position. I like Jimmy Butler from the Miami Heat playing the Portland Trailblazers, who have the 11th worst defense overall, and they give up the 6th most fantasy points to opposing small forwards. Jimmy Butler has averaged 46.1 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 34 minutes per game with a 27% usage rate. He scored 50, 44, and 44 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 35, 34, and 32 minutes. He's projected at 47 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5.1 times value. He's $9,300 FanDuel salary and $300 less on DraftKings. Vegas thinks there's going to be 221.5 points scored in this game. So I like Jimmy Butler here versus the Portland Trailblazers. Okay, another small forward that I like is Brandon Ingram from the New Orleans Pelicans playing the Cleveland Cavaliers, who have the 13th worst defense overall, and they're middle of the pack defending opposing small forwards. Brandon Ingram has averaged 38.3 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 34 minutes per game with a 28% usage rate. He scored 34 fantasy points last game in 34 minutes. He's projected at 38.4 fantasy points here tonight. That's 4.8 times value. He's $8,000 FanDuel salary and $300 more on DraftKings. So I like this pick because he scored 45, 47, and 37 fantasy points in his last 3 games versus the Cavs. And Vegas thinks there's going to be 227 points scored in this game. So I like Brandon Ingram here versus the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Real quick, guys, I got great news. For a limited time, we're offering a full 30-day trial to Draft Dashboard. You can try all of our DFS tools for all sports. You can try the Position Optimizer, where you can see the top players ranked for each position. And we added a new Player Trends tool, where you can see the top salary differences between FanDuel and DraftKings. It's a really good tool to help you pick out value for the site that you're playing on.
Oh, and if you're tired of doing research every day, we just added a cheat sheet that shows hand-picked plays for the slate. No confusing stat lines, no headaches, just a simple cheat sheet that shows the absolute best players for your lineups. Okay, who do we have at the power forward position? I like Kristaps Porzingis from the Dallas Mavericks playing the San Antonio Spurs, who have the 10th worst defense overall, and they're middle of the pack defending opposing power forwards. Kristaps Porzingis has averaged 38.6 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 31 minutes per game with a 28% usage rate. He scored 53 and 41 fantasy points in the last 2 games, playing 33 and 36 minutes. He's projected at 40.9 fantasy points here tonight. That's 4.8 times value. He's $8,500 FanDuel salary and $400 more on DraftKings. He scored 45, 41, 32, 57,
and 31 fantasy points in his last 5 games versus the Spurs. Vegas thinks there's going to be 220.5 points scored in this game, so I like Kristaps Porzingis here versus the San Antonio Spurs. Okay, another power forward that I like is Rudy Gay from the San Antonio Spurs playing the Dallas Mavericks, who have a good defense overall, and they've been good versus opposing power forwards. But Rudy Gay has averaged 22.4 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 22 minutes per game with a 24% usage rate. He scored 23, 16, and 16 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 19, 21, and 24 minutes. He's projected at 23.7 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5.3 times value. He's $4,500 FanDuel salary and $200 more on DraftKings. So I like this pick because he scored 34, 29, 22, 20, and 42 fantasy points in his last 5 games versus the Mavericks. So I like Rudy Gay here versus the Dallas Mavericks. Okay, moving on to the center position. I like Jonas Valanciunas from the Memphis Grizzlies playing the Indiana Pacers, who have the 9th worst defense overall, and they give up the 13th most fantasy points to opposing centers. Jonas Valanciunas has averaged 36 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 28 minutes per game with a 23% usage rate. He scored 50, 41, and 33 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 35, 26, and 27 minutes. He's projected at 36 fantasy points here tonight. That's 4.8 times value. He's $7,500 FanDuel salary and $100 less on DraftKings. He scored 36 fantasy points in his last game versus the Pacers. We know Vegas thinks there's going to be 227.5 points scored in this game, so I like Jonas Valanciunas here versus the Indiana Pacers. Okay, another center that I like is Enes Kanter from the Portland Trailblazers playing the Miami Heat, who have a good defense overall, and they're middle of the pack defending opposing centers. Enes Kanter has averaged 31 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 27 minutes per game with a 17% usage rate. He scored 68, 19, and 37 fantasy points in his last 3 games, playing 37, 20, and 35 minutes. He's projected at 31.4 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5.8 times value. He's $5,400 FanDuel salary and $700 more on DraftKings. So Jusuf Nurkic is still out, and Kanter's price hasn't gone up all that much, and he scored 43 fantasy points in his last game versus the Heat. So I like Enes Kanter here versus the Miami Heat.
If you want to try all these daily fantasy tools for yourself, click the link in the description below this video or just go to draftdashboard.com. You can use our DFS lineup optimizer to build quality lineups using our picks and your own custom player pool. Click the link in the description below this video and try all these daily fantasy tools right now. Thanks so much for watching. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit that bell icon so you can get instant updates whenever we post a new video.
Thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please smiggity smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Oh, and please comment below with your favorite player for this NBA slate. I love to hear what you guys have to think. Thanks again, and good luck.